Welcome to Healing Your Family Legacy, here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Innovative, evidence-based recovery that helps to identify intergenerational trauma, allowing for freedom and embracement of the healing process. Today, episode 88, The Expectation for Perfection, Part 1. And now your host, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee.
This is Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee, helping you heal your family legacy. Welcome back, and I am going to change course a little bit, in terms of what I've been talking about for the last year and a half, which has been mostly about childhood trauma, the impact on your life. If you have had, and you have had, childhood trauma, it's just a matter of degree, what has happened to you, how it affects you in your adult life. And that's really where I'm going for the next little while is how has your childhood trauma impacted you as an adult? And for everyone who's had childhood trauma, if you remember when I first started, I said that when you have childhood trauma, and especially if that trauma comes from adults who are supposed to be caring for you, is that you always think it's your fault. You always will. And that's because children, and, up to probably 25, it starts changing a little bit as you grow older, but children always think that everything is about them. And that's because they're egocentric. It's a natural thing for a child to feel egocentric and to act egocentric because they're children. It's part of their development. And then as they grow, they start recognizing that there are other people. It's not, it usually happens about 18 months to 2 years when a child starts recognizing that they're not they're not part of their parents' bodies. And that's what we call, like the 2s and 3s can be hard on kids and parents, and the only thing that's really happening in a big way is that the child is starting to recognize that they're an entity on their own. And as they do that, they start to realize the otherness of their parents, the otherness of other people who are in their lives. If children start, say, preschool or, daycare, they start to learn about otherness. There's other kids, there's other people walking down the street, and they aren't me, okay? So that's the separation of a child from a parent. And when the child has made a healthful and healthy separation from the parent, they will feel kind of a sad, scary, empty feeling when the parent leaves. Like if you drop the child off at, say, preschool, the child will feel sad and kind of scared and almost like there's for a child who's in that situation, it's almost like the death of the parent that's happened. They're just in extreme distress for as long as they see the parent leave. Then after the parent's gone, they turn to their friends, their teachers, whoever it is, and all of a sudden the parent's no longer there and they're able to adjust. That's what happens when there is a healthy separation from a child and a parent. Now, you might think, well, what if the child is feeling like there's a death in the family when the parent leaves? Why is that healthy? Well, it's healthy because that's when a child starts to experience you're leaving and I'm here on my own with other people. So I'll go interact with them. I feel better. I'm playing. I'm learning things. And then when the parent comes back, say at the end of the day when they're picking up the child might feel a little bit like aloof or angry at the parent. Kind of like, well, you left me. What are you doing back? But it doesn't take but a few, maybe 30 seconds or so where the child like is really glad to see him and hugs him and, we're all ready to go home now. So that egocentric part of all of us has to do with our childhood, and that ego state. Remember I said earlier that ego states stay with us. They don't disappear. Healing from childhood trauma doesn't mean that ego state will disappear. What it means is that as you begin the healing process, you start to feel more and more your age as an adult. So, say, in my healing process, I started to feel more and more like a grown-up and, was able to make better decisions about, say, jobs and cars and whether or not to have a child. When I was young, I thought never in a million years am I going to have children. Not going to happen. Because in my family, being a child meant that you were always in danger. And I thought, why would I do that? And I was afraid of my own anger that, I might become a parent that the child was afraid of. And that idea of that was just intolerable to me. So my life was set out to just be about, relationships with other adults. I had plenty of nieces and nephews that I could, spoil, as it were, pay attention to. And, and I did. I loved and still do, loved all of my nieces and nephews. I still love all of my nieces and nephews and would pretty much do anything for them. But when I, about 10 years into my own healing, I recognized that my deep soul desired a family. And so, I thought about that. I thought, well, is this a real thing? Is it just something new because, I saw a cute baby today or whatever? And I was able to go into, at that time, my 36-year-old self, and I felt like a 36-year-old woman. And I evaluated and looked at all of the potential problems, the options that might be available to me. And I was able to make adult decisions about that desire. Okay. So and I thought, okay, well, I don't know how that would work out if I had a child. If I had a family, I don't know what that would look like. Other people do it. I can do it. And I made the choice to go forward with that. But it was from adult reality. And I also had learned by that time that there is no such thing as perfection. When you grow up in a family that is abusive, that abandons, that neglects you as a child, you think it's your fault. And then you start thinking, well, if I'm not perfect, I'm not enough. Okay. And it sets you up to think that everything you do, everything you think, everything you say, everything in your life is a struggle for perfection. And there is no such thing. I think most people listening, and if I did a survey of people in the grocery store or, Costco or something, and I said, do you think perfection is possible? They all say no, because I would be talking to them in their adult self, right? Because most of us, when we're in the grocery store, are in our adult selves most of the time. I mean, when you're loading up your cart with red licorice, I would wonder about that, but most of the time we are. Perfection by human beings is not possible. Okay? And, in my reality, there has never been a human being walk on this earth that's perfect. Even Jesus lost it when he saw the money changers in the temple. He got angry about that. And most people think that if they get angry, they have to stop being angry in order to be perfect. And perfect is what people are trying to do. Now, there's another way that people have an expectation of perfection. And that is, when the parents, and this is a form of abuse, right? It's like when the parents elevate the child to the position of an adult in the family. For instance, let's say it's time to plan a summer vacation. And let's say the child is now 10 years old. All right. They've already discovered that there really are other people on the planet besides them. But this is how they get to the place where, but I'm the most important. So all of you out there are kind of like weeds in my way. I'm the most important. The parent sits down with the family and says, okay, where are we going to go for a family vacation? And you say, because you're the most important, you say, I want to go to Disneyland. And the other kids say, I don't want to go to Disney. We go there all the time. Why don't we go somewhere else? Why don't we go on a road trip? It's like the parent looks at the rest of the children and says, well, I think we're going to choose Disneyland. And here's all the reasons why. And so then the child who, it's like is elevated above the other children, is elevated above other members of the family. And they start to believe that they are perfect, that they are so extraordinarily special that everyone else's opinion doesn't matter. So you got people who are overesteemed and you got people who are underesteemed, all searching for that perfection. And the overesteemed feel like they are perfect and that they are extraordinarily special. And then you have people who feel like they're a piece of crap and nothing they can do in the world is going to work. Okay? So why is that important? It's important because these people grow up. Chronologically, they grow up. Their bodies finally reach adulthood. Their, frontal lobes close between 25 and 26, and they are grown now. It's like they are as tall as they're going to be. They are, as their brain is, it's like, hopefully they keep learning, but, it's like the development, the maturity is now there. Okay. So if these people are, say, extraordinarily special, they are going to have an expectation in the world that everything they say and do and look for has to be perfect. And I've known some of these people in my life because, of my work. And they're angry and cynical. And, a couple of these people have been incels. I don't know if you know what they are, but incels are men who are involuntarily celibate. Incel, okay? And the reason is because they believe that if the perfect woman doesn't find them attractive, that there's something seriously wrong with that woman and the men that she attracts. Okay, there's a whole big system. I'm giving it to you in a short, small way. And so they start to develop sometimes a lot of hatred towards women that they feel are perfect. Now, the rest of us don't really matter very much. And to the men that those, quote, perfect women attract. And then they get angrier and angrier. And they have grouped together, thanks to the internet. And there's a lot of them. And in fact, some of the shooters who have gone on to college campuses anyway, and high schools, are self-ascribed incels. Okay? And they are going after these people that they think are shunning them because they believe that I absolutely deserve to have that perfect woman. And she's going to be and do what I have an expectation of, which is usually she's going to be subservient to me. She's going to fix me perfect meals, give me perfect children, give me perfect sex. And if she doesn't do it, it's not me that made the decision. It's there's something wrong with her and she's not useful to me anymore. So you can imagine that expectation of perfection about relationships, about women, would be, I would create some, cynicism because we are not perfect. Even those beautiful women, those, women who are 10s, they're not perfect. They might be very beautiful. They might be, have good personalities, but, it's like there's no such thing as perfection. And so the day that maybe she didn't cook eggs the right way, and you've made a determination that, now I find out that there's something wrong with you. You should have been more honest with me. And, it's like, and it's all in his head. All right. Another area I see this is like in jobs. And this happened before. I remember the first time I heard this in my office was probably about, 25 years ago. All right. I was sitting in my office, I was working, and I had a new person coming in who was like a 26, 27-year-old man who, his parents were worried about him. Now, he had gone to prestigious college. He had gotten a degree that was, very marketable. And yet, it's like his parents were concerned that he was depressed. And so they brought this 26, 27-year-old man into my office, chewing their nails and being worried that he was going to commit suicide and, this whole deal. And so I sat down with him and, he was all disheveled. He'd just gotten out of bed to come to his appointment. And I said, so, what's going on with you? And he just sat up straight and looked at me with, with disbelief in his face. And he said to me, okay, well, I started this job. I thought it was a great job. I thought we were a really good fit. I was excited about it. And when I showed up from the first day, my boss was really angry with me. My supervisor was really angry and came in and said, what do you think you're doing? And I says, well, what was he mad about? And he says, well, it was 10 o'clock in the morning when I usually am really ready to go. And he was like angry and said I was fired because I was late. And I said, okay. And he says, well, I told him I don't get up till 8:30. What do you expect? And he looked at me with disbelief. He said, can you believe that? And I said, well, actually, I can believe that. And if that's your reality, you are not going to find a job out there in the world. The other option is that, it's like maybe you could find a job that starts at 10 o'clock in the morning, or maybe you could make your own company or whatever. But most of the time, the work day is about 8 or 9 to 5 or 6. And he said, well, if they only understood, basically, he said this is not a quote, if they only understood how valuable I am to them, they wouldn't care what time I came in. And I thought, wow, you are in for some tough times. And I said, well, your parents are concerned that you are depressed. And he goes, I'm not depressed. I just haven't found the right place. And I don't get up till 8:30. That's just when I get up. And it was like, okay, well, obviously this isn't going to work for you. And so I made the suggestion that maybe it wasn't all about him, and he just was baffled by me and thought that it's like, well, you need a higher degree or you need to go to a different school, whatever. And he left. I don't know what happened to him. He was clearly, it's like his issue wasn't about depression. It was about this reality that I had to be his parents, because they're primary caregivers and they're the ones that have the biggest impact on us. And they had raised this man to think that, well, the world just kind of works around you because you're so special. I've wondered what happened to him, but I still see that today. In fact, I see it more today in our world. It's like, if you don't do what I want you to do, and by the way, I'm probably not going to tell you what that is, because if you are good enough to be in my presence, you'll know. And, I hear people say, I read it in the papers. I hear, because I'm still practicing this job, as it turns out. I'm still working as a therapist, and I'm still hearing about this kind of belief that what is wrong with you people? For all different kinds of reasons. And it has to do with my belief that I am way more special than everyone else, and you should know this if you're in my presence. The other side of this is I'm a piece of crap and I'll never be okay unless I'm perfect. So I spend my whole life trying to do everything perfect. I try and be the perfect mom and the perfect therapist and have the perfect degrees and have the perfect car and the perfect house. And unless I live in the perfect neighborhood, I'll never be acceptable. And this is the other side of that. One is, well, I'm perfect and I'm a 10. So the world around me needs to recognize that. And then you have the side that I'm a piece of crap and I'm over here trying to be perfect. And I'll never be acceptable as a human being unless I am perfect. I was concerned about this idea when I heard the term super mom. It's like, what is that? A super mom? And it was, well, I learned that it's the person that tries to do everything perfect. The job, the kids, being a wife or a partner, the way you dress, the way you look, the way your body is, the striving to be perfect. And, those of you who have listened to me before have probably heard about my legacy workshops where people come and, they begin to understand what their childhood trauma was and how it affected them. And then there's a process that helps them to get through it, like break through that, here's where my childhood trauma is. And no matter what I do, I can't seem to get rid of it. It just shows up in my adult life and I don't even know it. Get through that. And then they start to act and feel more like an adult. And I have had women in my legacy workshops who've had so much work done on their bodies, their faces, their bodies, every part, that they don't really even look very human anymore. And they look just like everyone else that does that, right? Can't really smile anymore. You know, it's like when I'm looking at something and it's got my attention and I'm trying to figure it out. It's like my forehead does all kinds of interesting things. So do my eyebrows, and yeah, so do my, every part of my body is like trying to figure this out, and their face doesn't change. It looks the same all the time. And yet they try and do it some more. And that's not based in, well, I think I'm just so extraordinarily special. It's based in, I've got to look more perfect. If I think I look like I have some old characteristic going on, like a wrinkle, or say my eyebrows start to droop a little bit, I got to get that fixed right now. Because if I don't, my husband's not going to like me, or I won't be able to get the right man, or, name it. What we do to try and be perfect is ridiculous. It's dangerous. It's like makes other people rich. So, let's think about this. I am going to continue to talk about this. Gotta be perfect all the time. Everything I do, everything I have around me has to be a 10, or I am going to be disappointed. Let's pick that up next time. Okay, try and be a 5.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Healing Your Family Legacy here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. Healing Your Family Legacy is copyright 2022, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.
Hey friends, Sean here, your Experience of the Soul producer. I want to take a moment to tell you about something truly exciting. The Soulworks online community, created by your host, Cynthia Alice Anderson, and available on the Mighty Networks app. If you're looking for a place where you can explore your spiritual path, connect with others, and grow in a meaningful way, then this is for you. Soulworks is so much more than an online community. It's a safe, inclusive space for spiritual exploration, self-discovery, and personal transformation. Inside the community, you'll find everything from uplifting spiritual studies to soul-centered growth practices, meditations, affirmations, and so much more. It's a space where you'll always be supported and never judged. The best part, membership is free. You'll have access to powerful resources, inspiring content, and a supportive group of like-minded people who are all on their own unique spiritual journeys. And if you're ready to dive deeper, there are premium options available to enhance your experience with a live Monday night talk series and extended, deeper meditations. If you're seeking a place to connect, grow, and nurture your soul, we would love to have you join us in the Soulworks community and see where this journey can take you. Visit my.soulworkscommunity.com today.